Malcolm Wilson, your first time to Ireland in Audi Quattro, your first time ever in Donegal. Does it please you that practice is allowed this year?
Oh, very much so. I mean, I definitely don't think I would have been here if they hadn't allowed practice. You know, it puts everybody on a much more even footing. And I think it's a good idea, and I hope it works well for everybody.
The Audi Quattro is not supposed to be that reliable on tarmac. Does that worry you at all?
Well, obviously, you know, it hasn't performed very well when it's come to Ireland. I mean, Stig won Ulster last year, but the circuit and things like that, I think it's all the little bumps and that and the strain on the drive shafts that cause the problems.
You've been driving the stages over these last few days. Do you think that it will be suitable for the Audi?
Definitely not. I can assure you that. I mean, there's probably 50% of them, yes, but the other 50%, I mean, I can guarantee you that there will be some places when I'll have to do a 3-point turn to get round the bend.
Vincent Bonner, you had a brilliant win here last year in your Escort. How do you expect it to be in the Escona?
Well, you know, this is the first time I've ever driven the car, and everybody that I've spoken to about an Escona said that it's a lot stabler car on the road and it handles a lot better than an Escort, you know, but it's going to take, you know, 5 or 6 stages before I really know what it's going to be like. So we just have to play it very cool now.
Pace notes this year, I'm sure you have certain views on it.
Oh, well, I think that they're a very good thing, to be honest with you, because the speeds we're going at the moment are just crazy unless you know where you're going, because you're living very, very dangerously without them. And I think they're good for everybody concerned, you know.
Billy, bearing in mind that there's pace notes involved in this rally and the top class field that have entered, will you have to pull out all the stops from the very first stage?
Well, I'd say that a lot of people here will be going flat out. All right, I don't want to kill myself just yet, but I will be trying to stay reasonably close to them, I think. It's a fairly short rally compared with the circuit, and you know, something like a puncture could be decisive, I think. So, you know, one puncture, I'd say, and you'd be out of it, really.
You've been up here in Donegal with the last few days practicing the stages. How have you found them?
Fairly mixed. That's a good balance between fast roads, and there's quite a bit of tight stuff in it as well, but overall I'd say it's fairly good. It's not too rough. It's not nearly as rough as the territory that was used in the end of the Circle of Ireland, so you know, all around it's a pretty good route, I think.
Thanks, Billy.
Thanks, Pat.
Donegal 84 is a pace notes rally. That must please you no end, Bertie.
I was glad to see pace notes introduced now in Donegal again. Back in the early 70s there was pace notes in Donegal, and that's when we had the best rallies, I think. So I think that if they can hold the pace note theme for future Donegal rallies, we'll get back to real top European competition, and I think that's what we need.
Very threatening clouds overhead. Is Tarchise going to be very, very difficult this morning?
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult. It looks as though it's going to be very showery all day today, and listening to the forecast, probably showery tomorrow as well. So obviously it does make a big difference which tyres you've on. It's always a difficult choice. So we just have to keep our eye on the clouds and watch how much wind we have, you know. I think we'll probably start the first stage on slick tyres because it's in quite high ground, which will dry very quickly, and there seems to be quite a good breeze about.
The Shell Donegal Rally 1984. The top drivers seemed fairly unanimous. Pace notes were very, very welcome. Malcolm Wilson was number 1 on the road and finding the bumps with his Audi Quattro. Last year's winner, Vincent Bonner, at 2, was still coming to grips with his Ascona 400. Billy Coleman was fast off the mark at 3, but faster still was Ballinamallard's Bertie Fisher. His tyre choice was perfectly correct. Phil Collins was in the bright red Opel Manta 400 at 5. The fourth of the Tarmac Racer Mantas was Austin McHale's NDT Example at 6. Brendan Fagan had squeezed orange juice backing for his Chevette running at 7, while the first of the Escorts was Richie Healy and Vincent Meade at number 10. Other front runners included Robin Land's Sunbeam at 11, James McDade out for the first time in an Ascona 400 at 12, Pat Kirk drove one of the Autotune Nissans at 15, a brave Robert Moffat was in the ex-Noel Smith Porsche at number 17, Ian Corkill in the Escort was at 18, John Connor's Chevette was at 20, and Pat Dunyan in the Sunbeam Lotus was number 21. The little white Corrie Cultraw, driven by former Donegal winner Brian Nelson, it's the first of the mechanical problems which meant its early retirement. Brian is about to be passed by the Sunbeam of Alan Fraser. Already out on the very first stage is number 8 seed, the famous Roger Clark, his Sierra turbocharged engine blown. Some other front-runners included the Datsun Sylvia of Belfast Dan Daly and the Nissan of Richard Stubber. So after the first loop of stages, Malcolm Wilson still led on the road with the four-wheel drive Audi Quattro. Vincent Bonner was through his baptism with his new Ascona, but back in 18th place and still unsure of his braking distance in the ex-Fisher car. Coleman was lying second by a very slim 6 seconds behind the Shell Gold Card Manta of Bertie Fisher. Fisher had taken a chance before the rally, fitting a back axle giving him a top speed of 120 miles an hour. The weather had stayed mainly dry so far, all Bertie's gambles were paying off. Phil Collins had made some last-minute rear suspension changes to his Manta, which weren't paying off, while Austin McHale, no lover of pace notes, had made a wrong tyre choice and was 17 seconds behind his teammate Coleman after stage 3. Brendan Fagan's Chevette was in 6th place, while the as ever sparkling Dublin Crystal Escort of Richie Healy was now 7th. Another top driver in early difficulties was Castlederg's Robin Lyons. His Lotus Sunbeam, which finished the Rothman circuit in 2nd place in Ernest Kidney's hands, is about to retire with a blown head. We catch our only glimpse now of the Ears Gartrack Escort of Mike Patterson. However, the English driver crashed into a tree, the car badly damaged, but fortunately both crew members were okay.
Collins, you're becoming something of a tarmac expert. Have you had any problems over these early stages?
Well, the biggest problem we had was that we changed the spring specification on the back for the event, and we dropped the car down and put some stiffer springs on it, and that was quite a big mistake. And the back end has been jumping around all over the place. You know, we've been riding on the bump stops most of the time. It was just like driving an Escort again. But we've just changed them now and put back on the softer springs, and hopefully that'll give us a bit more travel and make the ride a little bit more comfortable.
And what about your stage times over these 3 stages?
Well, it's about as we predicted. You know, the 3 local Mantas, or the 3 Irish Mantas, should I say, Billy, Bertie and Austin are in their own rally, and we're just trying to be the best of the rest, which is exactly how it stands at the moment, you know. So yeah, we're quite happy about where we're lying at the moment. Yes.
Thank
stages on Donegal's Friday run, 3 repeated going south towards Ballybuffet and 3 to the north as far as Kilmacrennan. Fortunately, the threatening rain more or less stayed away, those drivers choosing wet weather tyres being left far behind in the high-speed race. The special stages were narrow and bumpy, but still very fast in the dry conditions. Nothing could touch the flying Opel Mantas. Bertie Fisher gradually extending his lead from Billy Coleman's dealer Opel Team Ireland back car. Both drivers were very close to the limit throughout the afternoon. Phil Collins had indeed improved his Mantas handling, Phil impressing a lot of people with his car control. The Welsh driver was in 3rd place after the Friday run, holding Austin McHale at bay by exactly 10 seconds. For McHale's part, he had made a slow start and had a lot to do on the Saturday. Brendan Fagan had driven steadily through Friday, was holding 5th place, but already 1.5 minutes behind the slowest Manta. The first of the escorts was still Richie Healy and Vincent Meade in 6th place. Richie's Saturday priority was to get in front of his fellow Dubliner Fagan, who was only 17 seconds ahead. Mike Dunyan and co-driver Dave Stone were in 7th place, over a minute behind Healy. Letterkenny's James McDade was out for the first time in Ascona and was holding 8th place. English driver Cyril Bolton held a solid 9th in his immaculate Pressport sponsored Chevette, with another Dunyan, Pat, brother of 7th placed Mike, in 10th place. 11th was James Cullen, James also settling into a new to him car.
Bertie Fisher, with nearly half a minute lead on Friday evening, is it more than we expected?
Nah, I don't think so. The pace has been very, very fast, and it's very hard to know, 30 seconds of a lead after 9 stages of a rally really isn't an awful lot, and especially in Donegal, where it's a very, very bumpy rally generally, and so hard on the cars. It's very hard to know how quick you should be going. But I know that we're going very quick, and Billy's obviously going very quick, so we're leading at the moment, and it's a nice way to be. It's better to be in front than to be second, but we're happy enough. We'll have to see how it goes tomorrow.
Thanks very much, Bertie.
Thanks, Bertie.
Billy Coleman approximately 30 seconds behind Bertie at the moment. Is it a bit much on Friday evening?
I wouldn't think so. It's about half a second a mile, and I think overall we're probably closer to the leader than we would have expected this morning, So I'm quite happy, really.
And you've had no problems whatsoever with the car all day?
No, none at all. The only problem is and our pace notes for one of the stages, 2 back, finished about a mile before the end. The stage was longer than we realised. We lost a bit of time there, but overall no problems at all.
And no change of tactics tomorrow?
No, I don't think so. The pace is fairly hard, I'd say. Wouldn't say there's an awful lot left, The weather might upset things a bit. I think they're forecasting rain, so that might change the pattern a bit. You never know.
Thanks, Billy. Austin McHale in 4th place. Have you found the pace very, very fast today?
Yeah, it's been extremely quick. Bertie seems to be going very well. We're beginning to get a bit more in the pace now, and hopefully get more used to the nose for tomorrow. So.
You got cut out earlier on today with a wrong tyre choice. Approximately how much time has that cost you?
Well, we dropped about 45 seconds, 50 seconds over the second 3 stages. We went out in intermediates, and unfortunately it was all dry, and we dropped a fair bit of time. But other than that, we've been going okay. The car's going very well, so hopefully pull back a bit of time tomorrow.
I'm sure you will, Austin. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
James Cullen, clerk of the course in 83. How did the change to competing come about?
Well, we've been out, run the rally this last 2 years. I think it was time we got back into the hunt. We seem to be getting away off the pace, so we've built a new car here, and this is our first time driving it today. And as far as we can figure out now, we're up to 14th place, and we're very, very pleased with that after 1 day's driving.
And did you prepare the car all by yourself?
No, the shell came prepared from Richie Healy, and John Boyle from Honor Cunningham prepared the rest of the car for us, and seems to have done quite a good job on it so far anyway.
And what's your goal from here on? A top 10 finish, I presume?
Well, a top 10 finish would be nice. So we'll just play it by ear and see how it goes. For main idea this time is we're getting 3 days now. We can stay going, finish the rally and learn to drive the car, see what happens then.
I'm sure you'll be well there at the finish, James. Thank you.
Well, I hope so. Thank you very much.
The Saturday run started quietly enough. The skies were overcast, but still there was as yet no rain. Ahead of the drivers lay 18 tough special stages, the meat of the rally. It was expected that the Saturday run would decide the winner. The early stages were in the countryside around Ramelton, moving north to Milford and then up the Fanad Peninsula, and the classic stages of Knockalla, Kendrum Lake and Fanad itself. As is usual on the Donegal International Rally, there were more than a few sore heads about after the Friday night hospitality of the Mount Errigal Hotel, formerly known as the Ballyrain. Biggest host of all, in more senses than one, was Derek McMahon, known throughout the Principality, indeed anywhere where there's motorsport, as Big D. It was through Big D's Donegal Oil Company setup that the Shell sponsorship of the event was channelled. On-event organisation was under the direction of Clerk of the Course Jim Callaghan, a Letterkenny school teacher, making a return to headmaster of the rally after several years' leave of absence. As the top drivers continued to battle for seconds, the first few flicks of the wipers gave notice of what was to come. Rain, rain and more rain, weather totally unexpected in Donegal, and which was to have a big say in the final outcome of the rally. The rain came in fits and starts at first, leaving the drivers in a dither as to what tyres to fit. Already out of the event on Saturday morning were Ian Calvin as Ascona pushed to the side of stage 10. Out too was Belfast Dan Daly, his Datsun engine comprehensively destroyed after a stirring drive. Ladies crew Phyllis Moffat and Anne Hurl are also out when their Escort damaged its front suspension. The Escort comes through at number 45. News is that Billy Coleman also lost some time on stage 11 when he spun at high speed after a large jump. But the Cork farmer got away with nothing worse than a few broken lamps. A worse fate was to befall third place Phil Collins. The Welsh driver was coming under increasing pressure from Austin McHale, and on stage 12 Collins overcooked it, his Manta ending up in a ditch with damaged front suspension. Phil was to work all day in a friendly farmer's yard to repair the damage, so we'll see him reappear later in the film doing duty as high-speed course car. Austin McHale was up to third place, but he was still almost a couple of minutes behind the rally leader Fisher. Brendan Fagan was up to fourth and best of the rest in the squeeze Chevette. Richie Healy was saying little but driving hard and well, just seconds behind Fagan throughout the morning. Mike Dunyan was struggling back in 10th place, and Mike will tell us later about his suspension and engine problems which slow him. James McDade had never driven anything like the Ascona before Donegal and was still finding the big car a handful, the steering pulling the harms out of him. James Cullen was piling on the pressure, hardly needing pace notes, so well did the former Clerk of the Course know the stages. While John Connor was having one of those rallies, his main problem being a lack of front brakes. As we see here and have seen earlier on, spectators were everywhere on the Saturday, standing in the most stupid places imaginable. Mainly because of the spectator problems, there were several Saturday stages cancelled, which was to have a major effect on the leaderboard. As Robert Moffat blasts the Porsche into the distance and Alan Fraser looms into view, his sunbeam to go off the road and lose about 6 minutes, it's time for another look at the leaders. Bertie Fisher was coming under increasing pressure, his high ratio back axle now a disadvantage as speeds fell in the rain. Billy Coleman had had another lucky escape when he overshot a junction in the rain, clipping a spectator in the process but losing little time. Austin McHale had the bit really between his teeth now and here overshoots a junction, fortunately with no damage this time, but it's a good indication of just how slippery the roads were at the onset of rain. Brendan Fagan was still battling with Richie Healy for 4th place. Here Mike Dunyan demonstrates just how hard he's trying, despite his front suspension worries.
Mike Dunnan, you have serious engine problems at the moment. Is it a big problem?
Well, we're very much down in power, about 1,500 revs, and this is affecting us greatly. And as well as that, the handling problem we had yesterday, it's sort of amplified because of the wet, and we're finding the going very difficult.
7th overnight. What's the position at the moment?
We've dropped to 10th at the moment, but we're hoping that if the rain clears, the handling won't have as much effect, and we might be able to hold on to 10th.
I hope you will, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Brendan Fagan, 5th place overnight. Has that changed at all today?
Yes, we're up to 4th now through the demise of Phil Collins, and if Austin doesn't get going, I'd say we're 3rd, but we're still only 2 seconds ahead of Richie Healy.
And then, of course, today's weather is suiting Richie's Escort more than your Chevette, I gather.
Well, I think Chevettes and Escorts are probably equal in the wet, and the Mantas probably are not suited to it. I just see Austin McHale coming in now, so that means I'm 4th.
Keep it going, Brendan. Thank you.
I'm going to do my best. Thank you.
Fisher led the rally away from the soaking wet Milford service area. His lead was still half a minute over Coleman. Fagan was referring to Austin McHale's crash on stage 19, the stage subsequently being cancelled. For once, McHale had a slice of good luck, the cancellation meaning that he kept his 3rd place and was still very much in the hunt. The front suspension damage to McHale's Manta wasn't quite sorted out, but at least he was still going through the miserable conditions. First time over Kindrum Lake, stage 23, Fisher's lead was now down to just over 20 seconds. Even after an axle change to a lower ratio, Bertie couldn't hold Billy at bay. The pressure was well and truly on the Ballymallard driver. Coleman just wasn't letting up. His Manta now looking a trifle second-hand, but the Sydney Meek prepared machine was certainly in full song. The Cork driver using every ounce of his experience. Next through is the escort of Richie Healy, but where has Fagan gone? He started the stage in front of the escort driver. As the squeeze Chevette slithers into view, the damaged back mudguard tells its own story. Brenton had hit a pillar on the tight bit of the stage, the Vauxhall engine stalling, nearly an agonising minute ticking away before it would restart. Fagan had slipped from 4th to 5th, a hard-charging Mike Dunyan nearly catching his fellow Chevette driver. The press park car of Cyril Bolton continued on its untroubled way, as immaculate as ever. Cyril and co-driver Derek Irvine are both acknowledged pace note men. James McDade and Rory Kennedy in the Ascona were holding on to 8th place. McDade still not settled into the new car in the wet conditions. Pat Dunyan and Neil Fitzsimmons in the Sunbeam Lotus were in 9th spot. However, the driver everyone was talking about was James Cullen. He just hurled the escort about in the rain, his only problem being catching slower cars. Last year's winner, Vincent Bonner, had settled into the back of the top 10, content for the moment to keep the Ascona on the road, perhaps even regretting he wasn't in last year's escort. Pat Kirk continued to hurl the Nissan 240 RS down the stages in impressive style, but an earlier knock had damaged the suspension, which wasn't helping his cause. As Austin McHale bursts into view, the damage to the car is apparent, but it now looks all systems go for the Dubliner. Austin certainly was not settling for 3rd place. Robert Moffat's Porsche was in the wars all day Saturday, with repeated welding being necessary to keep the rear suspension together. The fabulous sounding machine just kept going. This is Drumbo driver David Greer, headlights ablaze, passing Hugh King's Sunbeam. Greer's rotary-engined escort spent its service area time on its side, having its exhaust welded throughout the day. As the Shell Donegal Rally's Saturday run goes through its final loop of 3 stages, the spectators, although soaked through, were able to enjoy one of the major rally battles for years between the leading drivers. Not only between the 2 leading Mantas, but right down the leaderboard, every driver had his sights set on some target, either keeping the man behind at bay or trying to catch the car in front. The weather varied between wet and very wet. Ahead lay one of the most demanding stages in Europe, Knockalla. As Bertie Fisher said afterwards, that was no place for a married man. Sliding from the Armco at one side of the road to the Armco at the other at over 100 miles an hour. Disaster was always only inches away. It was tight stuff indeed. was how it should be done. Now spare a thought for co-driver Seamus Gormley. All he can do is hold on for grim life as his pilot John Connor struggles with his battered Chevette. The Vauxhall has had virtually no brakes all day. Now it has none, just a handbrake. Hold on, Seamus. Oh dear, but thanks to the design of the modern rally car, only the crew's feelings are hurt. John was so looking forward to his home stages around Downings. There's no way the following Ian Corkhill can stop, so he just has to plough on through the fiberglass. That particular piece of fence is doomed anyway. Here's what happened to it last year when Belfast dentist John DeLees had a bite at it. Ooh. Happily, Galeese is going better this time, leading Group A with the same red Escort, now straightened. Also crashed at Knockalla, but further back was Pat Dunyan, his Lotus on its roof, the Donegal's driver's chances of a top 10 placing gone. He got going, but retires. So it's on to the last Saturday stage, highlight of the Shell Donegal, the race through the packed streets of Ramelton. Unbelievably, it's Billy Coleman first on the road, but where's Fisher? The rally leader for 2 days had slipped off the stage on Fanad, Bertie's jinx stage. The car was undamaged, but the 3-minute delay had dropped it to third. It was now Coleman first, McHale second, and Fisher third. The Shell Gold Card Manta was completely unmarked, but that is of little consolation to Fisher. He knows now that he has a slim chance indeed of regaining the lead over the small mileage Sunday run, unless the other 2 Mantas have bad luck. Richie Healy still held 4th place. He was 2 minutes behind Fisher. Fagan was in 5th place. He was over a minute behind his fellow Dubliner, Healy. Young James Cullen was still stirring the crowds. He was a hard-charging 6th. The gap between himself and Brendan Fagan was also just over a minute. James Dade, pictured here, had worked his way up to 7th position, a really good run. And somehow or another, Mike Dunyan and co-driver David Stone were holding on to 8th place despite all their problems. Last year's winner, Vincent Bonner, and his wisecracking co-driver, Seamus McGettigan, had settled into 9th place with the still pristine Henley forklift Ascona. Cyril Bolton and his co-driver, Derek Irvine, had unfortunately slipped to 10th, following a puncture to the press part Chevette, which cost them just about a minute. On the leaderboard, but still having his own private ball in the ex-Vatman hired escort, was Navan's Pat White. Pat is in the building trade, but maybe he's also thinking of expanding into the demolition business, as we are about to see. Yellow Mini is local driver Sammy Fisher. Sammy lost time earlier in the rally with wet spark plugs and is now having a battle for the class lead with Sean Carey. Escort RS2000 of M. Maguire and co-driver, Banton solicitor Plunkett Taff, is well up the field as they perform to the huge Ramelton crowds. It's time to reflect on the Saturday and look forward to the Sunday. Billy Coleman and a few of the other top drivers are about to express their views at the start of Sunday.
Billy, almost 2 minutes of a lead. Barring mechanical problems, are you home and dry?
Well, you can never say that, especially up around here. You know, the nature of the country. We should be all right, I think, bar a puncture or a mistake on my part. But the car is absolutely flying, and you know, I'll be keeping our fingers crossed.
Are you going to go flat out, or will you just feather it a little bit this morning?
Oh, I think there's no point in going flat out at this point now. I'm sure there'll be a few other people who will probably be doing that, but we'll just have to keep an eye on them, and we'll be on a fairly steady pace, I think, and just play it by ear.
Best of luck to you, Billy. Thank you.
Okay.
Pat, Ramelton yesterday evening was a thrilling second in your case. Can you recall much of what was happening?
Well, it got rather slippy on one of the bends, or maybe it was driver error, I don't know, but we went off and hit one of the houses and lost a fair bit of time there. You know.
But you did very, very little car damage there, I think.
No, we had no structural damage other than the wing. That's just all. I just caught the front wheel and delayed us for a few minutes getting it back, but other than that, we're okay.
Saturday stages, Richie, were very, very wet. I think they suited your car in particular.
Yes, much more so than the Mantas, I would say.
In fourth position at the moment, Richie, what are your chances of picking up a place or two?
Well, it's dry at the moment. I think unless it rains very hard today, my chances are practically nil, because the Mantas are so much quicker and much more developed than my Escort.
Well, we spectacular moments yesterday, Bertie. Could you tell us a little bit more about them?
Yeah, it was all very quick. It was on Fannet Head stage, second time through. The stage was basically bone dry, but we came to a hairpin right and down around a fast right-hand bend, and the road just changed to a sheet of ice, really. You know, it was very, very wet. And just followed by a very sharp left-hand bend at the corner of a house with some rock sitting on the inside of the bend, and we tried to handbrake around them, and the back of the car just slid into a drain, sitting onto the chassis rail, and there wasn't a spectator in sight. So by the time we got some people gathered up and got the car out, we'd lost 3.5 minutes. Dropped from first to third. So hopefully we can do something about it today. I don't think there's any way we're going to catch Billy, but you never know with rallying. They can have their problems. They were both lucky. Austin went off on a stage and lost 5 minutes, and the stage was cancelled. Billy went off twice and lost no time worth talking about. So I go off once and lose 3.5 minutes. So maybe they have their problems to come yet.
That just about sums up the position as Billy Coleman leads the field over the Glen stage, the first of 10 in the Sunday run, the highlight being the famous Atlantic Drive test. Fisher's hopes for a bit of good luck are already dashed. The telltale trail of blue smoke points to a puncture and more time lost. For Richie Healy, 2 minutes back starting the day, so Fisher is still secure in third. The weather was dry but still cloudy as the rally edged east and then north. Soon, however, the first spots of rain were to land in windscreens, and a foretaste of more dramas to come. As Billy Coleman forecast, he wasn't going to drive flat out, but he was going to keep a careful eye over his shoulder. Charging McHale wasn't for giving up, but 2 minutes is a lot to pull back on a driver of Coleman's calibre. It's evident here just how hard that Dubliner was trying in his battle-scarred NDT Opel Manta. For Bertie Fisher, following his puncture, the battle is over. The Shell Gold Card Manta driver has already settled for third place, while co-driver Austin Fraser just kept reading the notes. His chance of victory on the rally which was his baby in the 70s, now gone. Richie Healy's fourth place was one of the most underrated drives on the rally. The Malahide Ford dealer was only just over a minute behind Fisher's Group B Manta, and that was in an Escort, supposedly outdated. Brendan Fagan's Chevette suffered a misfire on the Sunday, but Brendan admitted that he wasn't driving as hard as he should have done. James Cullen was now in his rightful position on the road in 6th place. The Letterkenny painting contractor was driving more or less on memory, depending on local knowledge. Vincent Bonner had now settled down to Opel Ascona driving, but any chance of emulating last year's victory was gone. We move on to Atlantic Drive, a streaming wet Atlantic Drive, the stage finishing at Downings. The soaking roads had caught some drivers on the wrong tyres, among them Billy Coleman, who pussyfoots through on dry weather slicks. The hard-charging McHale is, however, on the right rubber and takes full advantage. As he did last year, Austin gives Atlantic Drive everything he's got and slithers into the field over the flying finish line, still setting fastest time for the stage. As the following drivers come down the hill to service, one car from the top 10 is late. The Opel Ascona of James McDade has punctured on top of the headland, losing well over 3 minutes changing the wheel. The delay moves James from 7th place right off the leaderboard, an indication of how tight the positions are. Sunday, 24th of June, 6:30 in the evening. The 1984 Shell Donegal Rally is almost over as a Letterkenny accordion band welcomes the drivers and the tens of thousands of spectators to stage 37 in Letterkenny. Throughout the afternoon, the roads around Carrygart, Downings, Milford and Creeslaw have been choked with cars as rally fans attempted to catch a glimpse of their favourites. Now it's all roads leading to Letterkenny. The rally had some problems. The weather was generally miserable, but still the Shell Donegal was enormously successful, a real rallying bonanza. It also represented a very substantial milestone in Irish rallying, a step into the 80s with the reintroduction of pace notes to international events. We see here the top 10, a la Miss World, in reverse order. In 10th place, Isle of Man crew Ian Corkle and Martin Quinn. Ian is a long-time supporter of Irish Tarmac events, loves nothing more than a break from his Douglas garage to come here rallying just for the sheer fun of it. In 9th place, after a consistent and tidy drive, Cyril Bolton and Derek Irvine in the ex-Russell Brooks Circuit of Ireland winning Vauxhall Chevette HSR, their only real problem having been a puncture on the Saturday run. And the press part Chevette. In 8th place was Mike Dunyan and David Stone, and what a rally they've had. Right from the word go, 3 days previously, Mike had battled with queer suspension, the battered Chevette wanting always to go its own way. Somehow or another, he had kept it all on the island, the wet conditions not helping his cause one little bit. In 7th place, it was Vincent Bonner and Seamus McGettigan. Vincent is about to make his only mistake of the weekend, and of course, to do it in front of several thousand people. But really, after such a controlled drive, Vincent can be excused for relaxing his concentration. It's no easy job jumping from an escort to a Rally Ascona. What this little incident does show, once again, is how dangerous the through-the-street stages can be. The marshals are doing the best they can, but the odds are against them. In 6th place, a victorious James Cullen and Cathal McGettigan. There was no way anyone would have predicted that the Letterkenny painting contractor would have occupied that position at the end. James' handling of the Tony Kelly-supported escort was a real lesson on wet weather driving. 5th place, Brendan Fagan and Ronan McNamee had a quiet rally by their standards. Just that one minor mishap fan ahead, slowing their progress. Brenton had won one international rally earlier in the year, so I suppose he couldn't complain. For Richie Healy and Vincent Meade, 4th place was probably better than they were personally hoping for at the start of Donegal. The entry list was full of Group B Mantas, Asconas and Chevettes, so their beautiful escort did really better than expected. For many, 3rd place would have been terrific. By Bertie Fisher's standards, it wasn't good enough. The Shell Gold Card Manta had led Donegal for 2 days, and for Bertie, only a win was good enough. The Ballinamallard man was undoubtedly disappointed at the finish, but at least his Opel was in a lot better shape than last year. Forever the Bridesmaid just about sums up Austin McHale's performances in Donegal. Once again, he was the fastest driver in the Sunday, but once again had to settle for 2nd. Maybe he was fortunate to finish it all. But there was no one would deny that Austin is still one of the most exciting drivers in Ireland. First, that's all that matters to the man from Mill Street. Billy Coleman and Ronan Morgan score their 2nd international victory of '84, taking a giant step forward to winning the STP Tarmac Championship. The gap at the end of Donegal between Coleman and McHale was just 31 seconds, but one is enough for Billy. As finish ramp commentator Plum Tyndall welcomes the winner, this is Brian Patterson, hoping you enjoyed this Cork Video production.
Leading in the rally winners, ladies and gentlemen, behind them Billy Coleman and of course Ronan Morgan. Putting on the winner's wreath, and maybe we get a chance to talk to Ronan, who played a very, very big part in this weekend. Ronan, can we get around here, and can we stretch over to back absolutely and absolutely Ronan? And let's not, of course, forget